Legio Lysanda's Titans bore the colors of bleached white, a deep black, and an ethereal blue. Their engines often went to war with a checkered pattern on their heavy armor panels, resembling that of an ancient Terran chessboard. The Legio's sigil is a many-pointed blue star representing the many worlds that felt their god engine's tread. In the center of that star is the Guardian's Eye, showing the unflinching gaze of the Legion as they protected the many frontier worlds of the Imperium on the eastern fringe. Lysanda was not a legion of glorious beginnings and noble heritage, but one born out of necessity after the Unification Wars. When the Emperor continued his great crusade to reunite the many lost worlds of mankind, the borders of the Imperium became larger beyond measure, and the forces of man were stretched too thin to protect it in any meaningful presence. The Emperor in his wisdom divined any new conquered world would not remain committed to the Imperium without protection from its local dangers. And thus, Legio Lysanda was born. Legio Lysanda would act as guardians of newly compliant worlds within the Ultima Segmentum. At the time of their founding, they were supplied with engines from many Forge worlds, most notably the Forge of Connor and its Forge moon, Gans, within the realm of Ultramar. Their initial strength was around 21 god engines when they struck out with the Explorator fleets to the galactic east. As new worlds became compliant and they allied themselves with the Emperor, the exploratory fleets left garrisons of Lysanda Titans to act as the new world's protectors. Once the new front was secured, the Explorator fleet would move on ahead to the east into the unknown void, and Legio Lysanda would redeploy to the new established Fringe world as their garrison. This process continued until the outbreak of the Heresy. The Legion was nomadic in a sense and unusual, as it bore no specific allegiance to a Forge world, called Nowhere Home, rather remained committed to its current assignment as a new world's guardians. The Legio was largely fleet-based and moved with the Eastern expansion. It was through these actions and natures that the Legio earned its nickname, the Sentinels of the Edge. Titan crews of Lysanda seemed to represent the best of mankind, and bore the qualities of a perfect soldier. Only perspective crews, sharp of mind and calm of demeanor, were considered to join the Legio's ranks. It was this reputation of cool temperament that led to the rumor of it being impossible to anger a Lysanda princeps, even in the face of insurmountable odds and conflict. This calming nature exemplified the princeps of Lysanda, as they viewed themselves as a balance to their god engine's fiery machine spirit. They were but a neutralizing component of a mighty machine. Unlike many other legions, Lysanda had no hunger for glory, only to serve and maintain peace through their role as protectors. Before commanding a god engine of the Legion, prospective princeps were required to meditate in silent contemplation for 7 days before assuming the command throne. This introspection better prepared them to rationalize and commit to the role they respectfully desired. The crews of Lysanda commonly walked amongst the people of their current charge, and often partook in a world's customs and culture. This led to them earning the respect of the locals, bureaucrats, and rulers, becoming, in a sense, unofficial advisors, though the weight of their opinions was much less influential than the formal delegates sent forth by the Imperium. When a garrison was ordered farther east to a new frontier, the full crew of each Lysanda Titan carried out a Legio ritual called Aegis Etching. This is where the crew members would carve reminders into the armor of their god engine out of respect for the world they spent potentially decades defending. Each of these carvings held a profound meaning to the Titan's crew, and it was not uncommon for engines to stride to war with volumes of such work visible on the Titan's plate. Once again, maniples of Lysanda would transit into a system further to the eastern edge. Within the bays of the explorator fleets en route to yet another world, it was not uncommon for the Titan's princeps to remain within their god engine's holds, embracing the quiet of a sleeping god before awakening its machine spirit. At the time of the Horus Heresy, the Legio's strength was at least 53 god engines, and perhaps as high as 72. True estimates of the Legio's strength was impossible to know, as the Legion was never fully mobilized, but spread across hundreds of worlds on the eastern fringe. As the Legion had no Forge World or deep heritage to draw on, it only fielded the variants of the Warlord, Reaver, and Warhound class Titan. They did not possess larger god engines such as the Imperator or the War Master, as they were only of a garrison status. Though it was not impossible through means of scavenging during the ferocious warfare of the heresy that the Legion may have come to possess larger engines of war. During the heresy, after the betrayal of Ithaca, the Legio was summoned back to the 500 worlds of Ultramar to the aid of the Forge World Connor and its moon Gans, an oath the Legio honored, for the Forge had gifted them god engines during their inception and foundation. They were involved in many engagements across Ultramar, allied with the forces of Legio Presagius and Oberon, against the now traitor Legios of Ardax, Infernus, and Mordax. The Ultima Segmentus defense saw Lysanda forced to engage enemies on many of the worlds they had once protected, but the scars of battle would only deepen with time. The worst of the conflicts came when Lysanda had to engage the worlds who openly sided with Horus against the Emperor, where they had spent years protecting during the Great Crusade. This was an open insult to the potentially decades of service Lysanda had provided the world as its stewards. Lysanda was forced to go to war against the very planets they had protected, while bearing the names of those planets on the armor plates of their engines through Aegis etchings. The trauma of having to carry out these actions would greatly damage the psyche of many Lysanda princeps. Where they had once sought to protect, they now could only see vengeance for the terrible actions they were forced to enact during the heresy. That was a brief introduction to Legio Lysanda. If you want to know a little bit more about the Legio and a few specific engagements, I would point out the mining belts of Dantico Prime, where the Legio made its mark and proved its worth, the Shadow Crusade as a whole, the underground pitch black engagements of the Midnight Realm, the Drop Zone Massacre of Titan Legions, of the Ambush of Espandor, or the enemy coming from the deep in the Dark Waters of Certhusa. My personal favorite was actually the Midnight Realm on Ulysses Prime, but all of these engagements just build on the introductory knowledge of this video. Legio Lysanda sounds like it has everything you want out of a frontline Legio. On top of that, they seem to live the life that would make the average Eldari Ranger jealous, and a good reason to leave your craft world. Stay tuned for more lore videos to come, and if you're interested on how Lysanda plays out on the tabletop, check out the Lysanda on the tabletop video found within the channel. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next lore video for Titanicus.